will changing implants lift the breast? If you change your current implants from 350 to 440, will it lift the breast at all? Reason for asking is it currently has dropped a bit. So first point, it's difficult. It's always difficult when you're talking about changing implants, because when you're changing implants, there is a variable amount of things that you might have to do. It's rare that you just take an implant out and put another implant back in again. Am I going to say never? Probably not never, but it's really rare to just take an implant out. You usually have to do something, and that something usually involves doing something around the capsule. The capsule is a scar tissue that forms around the implant. So you might have to do a capsulectomy, you might have to remove the capsule, you might have to do a capsulotomy, you might have to score the capsule in order to accommodate a slightly bigger implant. If the implant is indeed bigger, you might have to do a capsulorrhaphy, which means closing down the capsule. If the implant's smaller, you might have to close down the capsule to close down the pocket so the implant's not wobbling about all over the place. But you usually have to do something. And when you've had an implant, especially when you've had it in for a while, the capsule often tightens around the implant. You may not have a full-blown capsular contracture, but it can tighten around the implant and make the implant look a bit more rounded than before. And for these two reasons, for one reason you have to do something to the capsule, and for two reasons the capsule is often a bit tightened around the implant, giving it a bit more projection and squeezing it a bit, means that often when you do a change of implant, you have to put a slightly bigger implant in to give you the same effect. So often, if you're sort of, which one should I go? Often it's usually better to go a little bit bigger just to fill that pocket, to fill that space a bit better to give you the same effect. So that's the first point, just in general when changing implants. Specifically, it's a really interesting question. This we'll go 350 to 440. First of all, if you want to lift the breast, implants are not great at doing that. The best way to lift the breast is a lift. A lift means cutting around the nipple, lifting the nipple, tightening the skin, gives you lots of scars. And a lot of people say, I don't want the scars. You say, fine, you don't have to have the scars, but that is the best way of lifting the breast. An implant, you can get some degree of added projection. So basically, the reason people say they need a lift or feel like they need a lift is because they've got too much skin. Usually because, maybe just because of gravity over the years has made their breast skin stretch, or usually it's something like, it's usually pregnancy or weight loss. Those two things both stretch the skin. So pregnancy stretches the skin, putting weight on stretches the skin. And then when the stretching force goes, so putting weight on is fine, but losing weight is the problem because the stretching force has gone and the skin has been stretched. Same with becoming pregnant is fine. Your breasts get bigger, fine, happy days. But then you lose the volume and the skin has been stretched, and then you stretch. That's what makes the skin. That what makes the breast droop. So breasts droop because there's too much skin there, and so you've got two options if you've got a droop to your breast. One option, and probably the best option, is to cut that skin out. Cut that skin out, refashion the breast, move the nipple, boom, 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 and that's a breast lift. That's what a breast lift is. If you say, oh, I don't fancy that, or if you want an implant, to a degree, you can take up that slack skin with an implant. So to a degree, an implant can fill the skin and give projection to the breast. As I say, it's not as good as doing a lift, but it is possible to add projection and take up some of that slack skin with an implant. But what you need to look for is you need that implant to have a bit more projection. You need that implant to fill that skin pocket a bit more. And so this is why it's really crucial to look at the dimensions of the implant, because everyone will say, oh, I've got 350. Oh, you got 440. Oh, right. Yours are bigger than mine. When I look at implants, when I think about implants, I don't think about the size. The size is the last thing on my mind, and it's the first thing on the mind of the patient. The patients always think, oh, I want 200, I want 400 because my friend's got 400, so I want 450 and all this. It's all about the dimensions. So this patient has actually said, this person has said, not patient, humanoid, given me the dimensions. So I know the dimensions of the implants. So, and what she's doing is she's keeping within the same profile. So this is why the profile is crucial. Not only the profile, but the make. But anyway, I don't want to get too technical, but the profile is crucial. So if you go within this, if you keep in the same profile, 350 to 440, it's bigger in every dimension. So it's wider and it's more projection. So it is more projection, but some of that increase in volume is taken up in the width. It's a different kettle of fish if you change projection. So if you went, say, for instance, from a 350 high profile, so if you went from a 350 high profile to a 440 extra high profile, right? So if the smaller impacts of 350 high profile, 440 extra high profile, that's different. Even if you went from a 350 high profile to a 350 extra high profile, that would be a different kettle of fish, because even though it's the same volume or a slightly larger volume, what would happen is that 350 extra high profile will be narrower than the 350 high profile and would have more projections. If you looked at the dimension, it would have more projection. So we've got to look at the dimensions. We've got to look at the dimensions, the width that fits your frame. Don't want to get too technical, but what I'm trying to say is it's really hard to do this on like forums and things when people say, oh, what's best size for me? You have to look at the frame, look at the width that fits your body, and then look at the projection that fits that width. And then you've got a volume. Once you've got a width and a projection, you've got a volume that just lends itself to a certain volume. So as I say, if you went from a 350 high profile to a 440 extra high profile, the 440 extra high profile would have a lot more projection, because it would be probably either the same width as a 350cc implant, or maybe even narrower than the 350cc implant, because it's an extra high profile, because it's all in the projection. Don't know if I'm making that make that too complicated, but the projection is really important. The dimensions are really important, because we've looked at these two, and it's 350 to a 440, same profile, so they're both extra high profile, so it's bigger in every dimension. So actually the projection isn't that much more. So the bottom line is you're not going to get much of a difference going from 350 to 440, keeping the same profile. It's a couple of millimeters more projection. Given that you're having a change of implants, you're probably going to swallow up some of that volume. So it's probably not going to give you a huge amount of difference. If you want to perform a lift with an implant, you have to give quite a bit more projection. It's difficult in this case because these are extra high profile implants, so it's hard to know where to go. But it's a great question, and it's one that I think I've quite ably demonstrated you need to talk about in real life, because it's hard to sort of get all these bits and bobs all over the place in in a virtual way. You have to sort of measure someone, look at the different projections, look at what fits the frame.